What's going on, guys? Carter here with Edged Mindset. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. We've got another knife review, overview type thing going on today. We're taking a look at the Microtech Matrix. Now, this isn't just any Matrix. This is the new production, overseas-made Microtech Matrix. So this design has actually been around for a long time. I remember way back in the day, came out as a custom. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. There was a whole debacle with Kershaw and this knife. I'm not super well versed in it, but I remember when it happened, and it's a thing. I will mention it, but I'm not going to go into super detail. If you want, you can research that. But when this first debuted years and years ago, came in as a custom, and then they've done different production versions, things like that, but all made in the US. Now we get the Matrix for a lot cheaper, made overseas in China as part of their Reich collaboration series, which seems to be very, very popular. People like that line. It seems to sell very well. Obviously, I don't have their numbers, but based on how quickly they sell out and how many people have them and the feedback I've heard, they seem to like it a lot. And why would Microtech do something like outsource knives to China? Well, it's the same reason most companies do, because they can offer a knife at a much lower cost. So you get all the same materials, carbon fiber, titanium, all the goodies, bearings, M390, all that stuff for a fraction of the cost of it being made here in the States. So before I before I really begin, this was sent to me by PVK. They are a big supporter of the channel. They've helped me out by letting me handle, review, and check out some knives. Much appreciated to them for doing that, because this is not a knife I was going to purchase on my own. I am pretty surprised with it, though, getting in hand. It's a lot better than I was expecting. So if you want something like this, go check out pvk.com. They've got a lot of cool stuff. And no, 100% unbiased. PVK has been around for a long time. They've helped out the community a lot over the years. And they have a lot of cool stuff. I'll jump into their site and I'll see things that I didn't know existed. So if you're looking for anything like that, especially automatics, OTFs, site opening automatics, they have so much available on that site. So go check them out. Let's do some specs. This thing is big. It's big. It's a big knife, but it has a really cool kind of hand feel to it that's a little surprising. If you go all the way tip to butt to the end of this giant glass breaker right there, 9.5 inches overall, almost a 4-inch blade, 3 3/4 if you're talking to the beginning of the scale there. Very, very big. Let's compare it to the Remet Rhino right here. If we go all the way to the end, that's what you're looking at. If you go all the way to the end of the scale, you're looking at about right there. And of course the Paramilitary 2, which is my tried and true kind of comparison method here. You can see how much bigger it is. If you go right to the tip, if you get rid of the glass breaker there, it's a little bit closer, but it is big, but it's also quite wide. Look how wide this is. Then if we look at how thin it is, it's not particularly thin, but because of how kind of wide it is and how big it is, it has a really cool feel in the hand. There's something about this. So if you're on the fence with this particular knife, if you're wondering, man, do I want to pick that up? I would recommend, if you can, just get it in hand. It may clinch the deal for you, because I wasn't super interested in it. Mainly just kind of aesthetically, it's just a little too, I don't know, something about it just didn't really do it for me. I want to say ooh, wow, am I going through puberty? I want to say maybe it's too futuristic, but that doesn't hold water because I have some really funky sci-fi style knives. Something about it I didn't absolutely love, but getting it in hand, it has a really cool hand feel. It has really cool action, really snappy. I was a little skeptical about how big this opening is. I thought it would feel kind of awkward. It does take a second to get used to it, but it's kind of cool because you have so much real estate to position it wherever you want, right? However you like to flick these open, you've got so many different ways to kind of get in there and do that. It's pretty cool. Let's do weight. I'm getting sidetracked here. Can't seem to focus, you know me. 6.1 ounces, so pretty heavy, considering titanium, carbon fiber, things like that. Pretty heavy, but it's a beast of a knife. So M390 blade, like you would expect from Microtech nowadays. This one has a satin finish on the grinds. They have one that is I think it's a bead blasted as well. You've got carbon fiber and titanium on the handle. There's a couple different versions. You've got this version, and then you've got one where the carbon fiber is more of an inlay. Personally, I think that one looks a little bit better than this one, but that's just personal taste. You've got a blue pivot collar that's been anodized. I don't love blue accents, but I think it looks pretty good on this one. Lock bar insert like you would expect. Let's take a look at any lightning holes. There really isn't any, which makes sense because of the weight of this thing. You've got the silicone carbide beg ball here on the pocket clip. It is a milled titanium pocket clip that is reversible. You just take off this glass breaker. If you can figure out how to do that without scratching it up, you'd have to use some pliers and maybe a rubber mat. You can flip this around and it can be lefty carryable. Backspacer here with some cool like milling going on, and then like a gear pattern, and then it's got a lanyard kind of post built into it. So this is pretty cool. Nice little detail here that's also functional with this lanyard post. Let's talk about this glass breaker. I think it looks cool. A lot of people would say it is obnoxious, which is a common trait of a lot of Microtechs. But for me, like if you're doing Microtech, man, just go all in on Microtech. There's plenty of knives out there that are way more subtle than this, have way less going on than this, way less style, way less kind of flair to it. And that's great. There's tons of those out there. So I appreciate Microtech being one of the kind of bolder voices in designs. That's just me. And I realize this isn't for everybody. In fact, it's not even really for me. Like I said, I don't particularly love the aesthetics and design of this knife. It does kind of feel good in hand, and you get the quality, the materials, and the price. But I don't love everything going on here visually speaking. But even so, I appreciate this nice knife existing, and I like this kind of stuff because not many people are doing it. Plenty of other options if you want something boring, plain tie, no glass breaker. Anyways, end of rant. End of rant there. The action on this thing is good. And it's not even that drop shutty. Like if you can see here, there's quite a bit of tension on this lock bar. If you remove that tension, if I can get out of the way of that flipper, it really kind of drops shut. So it's not even so much that it's that smooth or that crazy glass-like action. It's just something about, it's really snappy. That detent is really dialed in well. And it just has a cool thunk to it. Like a good sound and a good hand feel is about all I can really say about it because it's hard to quantify. It just feels cooler in hand than I was expecting when I was just looking at this thing. Of course, you got the flipper here. Not the biggest fan of flippers, just a personal preference. I just think they look goofy, and I've just kind of seen too many flippers in my day, but I know a lot of people like them. So if you are a flipper person, then this might be right up your alley. So this is the kind of bolster, locky, inset lock type thing. This one's a little bit different though, because I believe this is all one piece. Traditionally, this knife, I believe, was made where these were separate pieces. And that was kind of the whole patent thing with this knife, is that this was one of the first knives to feature kind of a separate lock bar that was affixed inside here and was separate from the main frame. But I think this doesn't do that. Now, like I said, this was sent to me to check out, so I can't take it apart and dig into it. But to me, it looks like it is really more of a bolster lock, where this and the liner are all one piece. But it's interesting because see how thick this is, and then see how thin it gets back here. So really interesting kind of machining if that is the case, because that would mean that they've taken a thick piece of titanium, they've left this part thick, they put in the lock bar insert, and then they've kind of thinned everything else out around it. Let's see if we can see inside there. That really looks like one piece, because look how thin it is here and how thick it is there. So that's interesting. I don't think I've ever quite seen something constructed quite like that, I think. Or maybe this is the first time I've just thought about it that in-depthly. So definitely cool, kind of a little bit different. It's a fun, big knife. It doesn't feel as heavy as it is in hand because it's so big. Now let's talk about the controversy real quick, touching on it. So back in the day, There was this back and forth between Kershaw and Microtech. Kershaw was coming out with a knife, I think it was the 777. Supposedly some words were had at a knife show where a challenge was issued to Tony, that Tony could never make something as cool as the 777. Tony took that as a challenge and he cranked out his version of that knife, which is very, very similar, which is the Matrix. Really, really fast, and went to market with it. I don't know the real story. You know, I'm sure if you talk to Kershaw, it's a different story than if you talk to Microtech. But it was like a whole thing with this design. So there is some baggage with this design that goes back like 10 years or so when this thing first debuted. I think that's all kind of settled down now. Everybody's kind of moved on, but it is a thing that exists. So if you buy something like this and you show it off online, you may get some comments to that effect. And you may be confused and you may be like, what are you talking about? So that's what it is. There was like a thing that happened with Kershaw and this particular knife. But that's all I'm going to say. I don't have all the details and I don't have a particular opinion one way or another. I just wanted to feature this knife, give my opinion on it. And basically, TLDR, which is what I should have done at the beginning, it's cooler than I thought it would be. And it feels better in hand than I thought it would be. It's better than the sum of its parts, I guess is what I would say. So if you're on the fence, it might be worth checking out. I also want to give a big shout out to this awesome Microtech mat that I picked up. This is from Dragon Cut Designs. So this is a leather mat that has been stamped with Microtech insignia, and it's actually a double-sided mat. So on this side, you have kind of this alligator print with other things that's brown. So kind of cool. Dragon Cut makes some cool stuff. These are kind of hard to come by, the actual leather mats here. And so I was able to pick one up. So I just wanted to show you guys. All right, I'm out. Please like, subscribe, comment. Tell me what your opinion is of this particular knife if you have one. Appreciate all you guys. Take care. I'm out.